Welcome to the OC Politics Show, keeping politics bipartisan, local, and on the level.
Welcome to OC Politics. This is Joe Matthews.
And this is Todd DeVoe.
You know, today's title, Todd, is Questionable Priorities from the OC Board of Supervisors, the OC Board of Education, the Grand Old Party, the GOP, all those people. Common sense is not common in the OC these days, and our leaders are proving it. Is the pandemic providing a smokescreen for bad behavior? Now, the political whip around. All right. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. The school board is going to sue the governor over keeping the schools closed.
And the GOP has fundraisers without masks.
Delay an election. Trump tweets starts pandemonia.
Term limits have timing issues at the Board of Supervisors.
Yes.
Kick us off. How are these people acting inappropriate? Uh-oh.
The school board is in. So the Orange County Board of Education decides to sue Governor Newsom over the school closures. And so the Orange County School Board of Education in closed session on Tuesday night decided to sue Governor Gavin Newsom to let schools in high-risk California counties to reopen in 2020-21 school year. In an announcement earlier this month, Newsom said that the counties, the state's coronavirus watch list, that kind of scares me a little bit, and you're on a watch list, right? Which includes Orange County, could not have students in the classroom. So in a 4-0 vote, the board decided to move forward with the lawsuit. Now that 0, because there's actually 5 people on the board, was trustee Becky Gomez, who is the lone Democrat on the board. So Joseph, you have some kids in the Orange County school system. What do you think of this?
Yeah, they just acquired OSHA, and this is going to be the first fall semester for OSHA. But I've already gotten notification from my kids. They're going to be doing it remotely this fall at least. So it doesn't really affect my kids, but you know, the Board of Education is supposed to be this shining example of policy to 27 other districts. So it's interesting how each has been receiving this news.
Absolutely. You know, my kids, we do not have them in the public school system. We have them in the private school system. But however, they're still impacted by this. And I think that, you know, I understand the debate back and forth, right? I understand the fact that when we talk about closing schools, when we talk about social distancing, we talk about these things, there is a definite economic impact to parents, right? Especially single, parent homes where they don't have money necessarily for daycare or for childcare, if you will. You know, how do they go back to work? Do they leave their kids at home alone for 8-10 hours a day? I know that's another issue there. So it's a balance, right? It's like, do we open schools? Do we not? Is it? And on the other thing though, is what I find interesting is a lot of the teachers unions are using this school closure thing and the fact that they do not want to go back to the classroom till, which I think it's impossible to do, to guarantee safety, right? I mean, if you think about any other disease out there, flu, common cold, things like this, there's no way to guarantee 100% that you're not going to get something, right? There's always risk. You get in your car, there's risks. So, but they're throwing like all these other things associated with it as well, such as universal pay for everybody, not just in Orange County or in California, universal pay for everybody in the nation. Medicare for all, immigration rights, defunding the police department, taking resource officers out of schools, which is odd because just a few years ago they were fighting for resource officers in schools. So they're throwing all these other things into that mix, which really muddies that water of, are teacher unions really looking for safe schools, or are they using, like we said at the beginning of the show, are they using the pandemic as a way to forward other political agendas that these unions may have? What do you think, Joe?
I think if in your back pocket, you know that you have to, that the schools are not going back to in session, that they're going virtual, that you have that in your back pocket, That's your bargaining chip to say whatever the heck you want. Now we're talking. The school district just won. The school unions just won by now, just now, and you mentioned all their issues, all the things that to worry about. That's keeping it on the forefront while everyone's talking about a pandemic. The school district, the school union, is actually having a voice to talk about issues that are important to them. So I think it's kind of smart. They're kitchen sink bargaining tools,
So realistically then, and this is the question then as, and I have some great friends. Enrique Castro, for instance, a good friend of mine who's a fifth grade teacher. He's a great guy. Him and I talk a lot about things that are going on, but should the unions, should teachers unions, let's not just say just unions, should teachers unions be using this pandemic, right? What they're saying it's for the kids. They always say it's for the kids, right? Defund the police department for the kids, right? Defund, get rid of Medicare for all. I guess Medicare for all could be for the kids, right? So everything's for the kids, right? Using that lever. Do you think that's just disingenuous though? A little bit. And the same thing with the school board. The school board does these wacky things. Is it disingenuous to do this to promote other political things? I guess as Rob Emanuel said, or Ron Emanuel, whatever his name is, there, like the guy who was the mayor of Chicago and worked in the Obama administration. Don't let a crisis go unused, right?
Yeah. Well, the school board is like going, oh, what about the poor single moms out there, and which is a legitimate issue. Why not focus a program or create a program for those people while everybody else is going virtual? Address the issue, not just use it as poor us. We need to justify passing this issue because of this one little subgroup.
Well, I get that though, but if you're going to open up schools, then, well, here's an option, right? Let's think about this. Let's say well, I guess it's still going to impact the teachers. It doesn't really work for them. But if you don't want to send your kid to school, maybe give them an online option, a virtual option, and people want to send their kids to school.
That was an option in the agreement. One of the board members said, if you have special needs kids, please stay home. That was addressed in their initial report.
Well, we're not gonna answer these questions today. I just think it's an interesting conversation, But I just think it's interesting that, and this just shows, right? This shows that simple things have all become political. And what I think is really weird that's become political is the fact of wearing a mask or not wearing a mask has become political. And there was a study that showed that if you, so what I disagree with, because I am not liberal or progressive, if you will. I'm pretty, which I consider myself a classical liberal, freedom first. But I believe in the fact of wearing masks. So I guess I'm the oddball on this one. But they're saying if you believe in wearing masks, you're more likely to be a progressive liberal. If you don't wear a mask, you're more likely to be a Republican right wing on the side, right?
Yeah.
But so what do you know about that, Joe?
Well, let me tell you, I just want you to imagine being in Newport Harbor right now. It's a pretty beautiful day this last weekend, right?
Yeah.
And you have, a dozen of your closest friends, and you're paying $75 to get on board this beautiful cruise ship. And you're sponsored by the Saddleback Republic Women's Federated, and you have state and federal politicians all there. It's all nice and fun. But
sounds like a blast.
That sounds like a blast. But guess what? You're not supposed to be doing that because none of these people were wearing masks. They're taking advantage of the fog. At the deck, they got their little temperature checked and they had to have a mask on. But as soon as they stepped on board, as soon as they hit that cash bar, man, all bets were off, all masks were off, and people were not wearing a masks. The there's a number of GOP people that were there, like Laguna Niguel Mayor Lori Davis. Now she's running for 73rd Assembly District. She was at the event, and she opted to have fundraisers with people. Like they want the face-to-face interaction when they're
Sure.
these political fundraisers. But let me just remind people, when we say, "Oh, it's wrong, they shouldn't wear a mask," well, let's look at all the times that they were warned not to even organize such an event. Now, on March 16th, non-essential gatherings to be postponed or canceled came out from Gavin Newsom's office. On June 18th was a statewide mask mandate. And then on July 13th, the mandates were reiterated. So all by the state. So they've been warned. They've been warned many times not to have the fundraisers. Now we are less than 100 days later. 100 days less from the election day, and so we have health experts that say alcohol and no masks. It's like close the bars, close the cruises.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I just saw a thing that came out of New York City, and Mayor de Blasio is talking about not opening restaurants up until 2021.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting to see that. I mean, so that being said, are these decisions being made political, or are they being made using current health regulations or suggestions? I should say they're not regulations, right? Coming from the CDC. Why are these? Who's doing what and why?
I think there's a martyrdom attached to not wearing a mask, because of what Trump has kind of laid out in front of everybody. It's causing. No, just wait. Let me stop right there. Who died this weekend? Do you know who died this weekend?
A couple people did. Herb McCain.
Yeah, Herb McCain showed up to the Tulsa, Oklahoma fundraiser for Trump, and now he is now in the heavens. We lost him due to COVID-19. So it's like we're not learning from our lessons here. Jane Dixon from the 74th Assembly District and Gary Rass from the 45th Congressional District both have cruise ships planned in the future. So the Board of Supervisors aren't immune either, because we had Supervisor Don Wagner. He promoted a debt retirement party for the $80,000 that he owed for his last campaign, and he had that in the backyard of a Laguna Beach supporter. So even the flyer said COVID considered social distancing, but nothing about wearing a mask. So there's some GOP people that are actually sort of being responsible, like Young Kim and Michelle Steele and State Senator Ling Chang. They both have said no person-to-person fundraising, and they're using Zoom to do their fundraising. So, do you know who Mike Madrid is?
I do not.
Mike Madrid founded the Lincoln Project, and you know.
Oh yes. The
Lincoln Project is it's evolved into a group that's trying to get Trump out of politics, and he said they're actually reinforcing a lot of negative stereotypes that I think exist with the Republican Party when they do stuff like this. So that's that's my little report about fundraising without masks. So wear a mask even if you're fundraising.
I mean, and this kind of goes into other things. I mean, fundraising is, if you're a politician and you're not fundraising, you're going to lose, right? I mean, basically, that's how they look at things, right? And fundraising is the lifeblood for their political stuff. Now, do you think that plays into term limit issues?
Of course, and I'm glad you brought this up, because the Board of Supervisors has, for the second time this month, they've actually dropped that from the agenda. They were going to have that on their agenda, but they dropped it and they deleted it from its agenda. What they're asking for, and they want this on the November ballot. Currently, you've served 2 terms at 8 years, and if you want to come back, you have to wait 4 years and then get reelected in order to be on that cycle again. And I think DA Todd Spitzer is the only person that's done that in a while. What they're proposing is a 3-term, 12-year lifetime. So they only can do 12 years, and then that's it. But what they're basically asking right now is 4 more years, right? 4 more years without any debate, without any scrutiny, without any public discourse. They just quietly are just trying to put it on the agenda and talk about it and get it passed. So, I mean, let's look at it this way. Do you know how much a board of supervisor makes?
Nope.
150 grand. And that's plus healthcare, 401k, and a $700 car allowance, right? Now, that's $600,000 right there. That times 5, that we would be paying a bonus if you give them the extra 4 more years. So Doug Chafee, Democrat, and Republican Lisa Barnett, they're the ones that kind of got their heads together to get this done. And they felt like, well, if we get together like this and get 4 more years, we can get more accomplished. We could be active on state panels. And how this kind of all happened was, they walked up to Lisa and they said, "Hey, Miss Barnett, Supervisor Barnett, we like you. We want you to stay longer. Please stay." And that was enough for her to take it to a report level. And she even got the OC Employee Association to agree with her to put this on the ballot. Now, if you go to the biggest union in your county and you ask them, "Will you support me?" Will you say no? If you're the supervisor, will you say no? Now, the GOP was a little bit less supportive, but they feel like this is, it's bad without debate. And, a lot of this stuff came up in 1994. Remember what happened in 1994?
Wasn't that the bankruptcy?
The big bankruptcy. And they did a huge amount of studies about whether supervisors should be part-time, whether we should elect a CEO, expanding the members to 5 to 7 or 9 members. So, and all those things are just got tabled because nothing got changed because it kept the existing system just exactly the way it is. So I think right now we're at a point where there's not enough votes for this thing to happen. That's why it keep taking it off the agenda. Wagner and Steele have both said no. Andrew Doe is abstained, and then you got Chafee and Bartlett that says yes. So you got a 2-2-1 tie, exactly. So no one's going to go out there and stick their neck out for these numbers unless 1 or 2 of these board members come out of the redwoods to say hello.
Redwoods.
Yeah, or the woods. It's a tall order.
Tall. Where's our rim shot? We need that right now. There we go. Thank you. Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, but here's a question for you, and I don't think I love. Let me rephrase that. I love the idea of term limits because I hate the idea of the career politician. It just, I mean, you take a look at like Dianne Feinstein, for instance, right? She has been on our senator for a gazillion years right now. And like yesterday, so first of all, let's give you some background. So I don't know if you remember a few years ago, Dianne Feinstein's personal driver, this person she's been around her for 20 years, was arrested for spying for China. And then just this last couple of weeks, 2 Chinese military officials were arrested here in the United States for spying. One guy they just snagged the other day at LAX. He's in the Army, and the other guy was in the Air Force, a doctor for the People's Republic Air Force up in San Francisco, was arrested for spying on some medical devices. And Dianne Feinstein goes on the floor of the Senate yesterday and defends China like it's like the second coming of the best nation in the world, that they have no issues. She's, things like this. And you listen to her and you go, what the mother are you saying, woman? You're on the U.S. Intelligence Committee of all this access. you still go up there and say China's like this awesome thing. So I don't know. She's been there. So my point about it isn't her political stance on China. She can take whatever position she wants on China. The point is she has so much power and she's on these committees. And so she's vulnerable, right? So it's an easy person to give money to if she needs the money or do whatever, or, take the pictures. And, China was able to put a personal assistant driver for 20 years in the chair of the U.S. Intelligence Committee for the Democrats in her office. What access do they have? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, China, regardless of what you feel about the Chinese people, right? Let's remove the fact that Chinese people compared to the Chinese government. Same thing when you say, people talk about the American people versus the American government. Completely different, right? We're talking the Chinese government is putting spies in the in California. And you have our senator stands up there and defends this nation. So yeah, term limits would be great. That way, you get her out, right? I mean, it's impossible to beat her at this point. But let's go back for a second, though. Now we see what happens here when we have term limits in California. So you go on and you term out, and then you end up running for your assembly, and then you run the state, and then you run for this, you run for that, you run for water board. You become this career politician. You don't do anything but politics. That is not what our representative system here in the United States was designed to do. We are designed to be a part-time government where you go and you do. I mean, look at our first president, right? He did 2 terms, could have been president for life if you wanted it. They wanted to give that to him, right? As basically an elected monarch, if you will. And he said, no, that's not what we're about. We're here to do our time in government and go back to do our day job, whatever that is. And we don't do that, and we get stuck in this thing, and now we have career politicians, and it's no longer about the people. It becomes about the politician and about their pocket, as Joe just kind of mentioned out. So that's my rant. That's my rant on this subject on
Got it.
Damn, Joe, this morning you get me going. My coffee wasn't working, but term limits got me going. So thank you for that.
I want another rant from you right now.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It's Trump inspired.
Oh, Trump inspired.
Trump inspired. Now, what's the latest tweet from Trump that we all
holy bejesus
rant ready?
Yes. So Trump's trumpet. So Trump floats on a tweet to delay elections, right? And people lose their mind on this because they're like, oh, he doesn't have the authority to delay elections. Absolutely not. But he can still say anything he wants to say, right? He can still say, hey, we should go to the moon. We should make the elections on the moon or whatever. But Congress does have the ability to delay elections. Now, Congress can also give that power, if they want to, in a simple vote to the president during times of crisis, which we could say that the COVID crisis is what we're calling it, right? So does that meet? Normally on the delay of election, what they're talking about on this, if you take a look at the Constitution, the concept behind it was more along the lines of during time of war, when they say crisis. But so Trump, by saying, hey, we should delay the election, he's floating an idea at this point. He didn't write an executive order to delay. That would have been a different whole story. But listen to this. We're going to give a little history or get a little constitutional lecture going on here today.
Suck it to me.
Yes. So, did you know that in the Constitution there is no guarantee on elections? Did you know that?
Did not know that.
So the only thing that the Constitution on the president, right? The only thing that they basically says and addresses is that the president on January 20th is no longer the president unless reelected, right? So you could do a couple of things could happen in this case. One is that you already have the electoral college going out there. They could actually go and do the state's bidding. So the states could actually and tell those guys this is how you want to vote, right? Not by popular vote. Or Congress could take up the issue and they can appoint or they can elect inside the body a president. They could do that. Outside of that, if it doesn't happen by January 20th, we do not have an elected president by January 20th, then the Speaker of the House automatically takes over as the acting president of the United States until an election is held and certified. So if Congress decided to, if Nancy Pelosi decides to say, hey, okay, we're going to take Trump's suggestion, right? And this would be completely a constitutional crisis going on if this occurs. So I'm not suggesting this is the answer by any means, but I just like, in theory, having these conversations, and political philosophy kind of comes in and listening to these things and taking a look at a lot of these writings that are out there. Take a look at the original constitutional writings and things, and the arguments that went back and forth. This is where this all comes from. So Nancy Pelosi could say before November 2nd, say, oh yeah, we're going to postpone the election till a further date and not give a further date, and kick that can down the road until Trump is definitely no longer president of the United States. And doesn't say he couldn't run again, but then Nancy Pelosi could actually be the president of the United States for an undetermined period of time until an election has been taken up.
Well, the House has enough votes, right? Right?
Yeah.
It's the first woman president, I'd say.
I think Trump would have to sign off on it if the election, he has to approve it, but they could do it.
You're hearing a spattering of people saying he's not going to make it easy for him to leave the office.
They said that about Obama too.
They're hedging that he's going to be a difficult person, and I'm hearing all that mucking.
But they said that about Obama too. So
yeah,
it's just this political kabuki theater.
I wish he had.
Well, Joe, let's just burn that Constitution up and let your guy stay in office because you like him.
That's right.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just craziness. I just love the idea, and it's funny because Brian, who's our producer here in the background, he he loves the fact that, or doesn't say loves, I'm being sarcastic. He loves the fact that I get into these like political philosophy ideas floating around my head and start espousing them, and he really loves those conversations. Don't you, Brian?
Love is a word.
Oh man. So well, you're getting here close to the end. I think we covered a couple things here that we wanted to cover today. I think the conversation with Trump was interesting. I do have a couple things before I turn it completely over to Joe to say goodbye. I don't know if you guys are following the news or not, but this week we had an accident. When say we, the collective we, the United States of America, had an accident off the coast of San Clemente Island where a AAV, which is basically an armored personnel carrier. People call them tanks. They're not tanks. There's no turret on it. But they're armored. They're heavy. And it took on water and it sank off the coast of the San Clemente Island outside of San Diego. And the latest is that yesterday they called off all search and rescue for the missing Marines and one sailor. So right now we know that there's 8 Marines, 1 sailor missing, and 1 confirmed death. So, this is a tragic accident. My heart and prayers go out with the Marines and sailors' families that are out there with their loss. And again, don't forget that we're sending young men and women every day out on, even if it's not war and combat, we're sending them out on these training evolutions and things that are dangerous. Just being in the military in general, especially with your grunt units, is dangerous. And we send these young kids out to do dangerous things every day. So I have some reasons why I'm not happy about things that are happening here politically here in the United States, and the fact that we put these young people out there every day in these dangerous situations to possibly die for our nation. is one of the reasons why I get burnt up a little bit on things. So God bless you all, and my hearts and prayers go out with those Marines and sailors family.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments, Todd. Pendleton is just right down the street for us, and there's been tragedy there before, and hopefully this will be an isolated incident, and we'll find those missing soldiers, and we'll get them back to the normalcy the best they can.
Yeah, it's kind of a downer note on what we're talking about, but I just needed to say that. So, Joe,
Yeah.
what do you have coming up?
What do I have coming up? You know what? We're going to be looking at a lot of different things coming up, and that's about as vague as I can get.
And anybody out there who's a woodworker, I'm still having some issues trying to finish the door for the little free library that my daughter and I have been working on, and so if anybody has any tips, I'd like to have that. But yeah, we're planning on putting some little free libraries up in the Brea and La Habra area.
YouTube could help you. Yeah. It's all on YouTube.
All right, until next week. And please find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and on your favorite podcast player, and on Sitch Radio. Thank you, producer Brian Colburn. Thank you, Joe Matthews. And thank you, all of our listeners. See you guys next week.